You're watching 12 WKRC TV, a new generation of news. 12 Newsmakers starts now.
Good morning and welcome to Newsmakers. Planning is an accepted part of American life. Governments have staffs of planners. Businesses have staffs of planners. The University of Cincinnati has a school of planning. Historically, planning is a modern phenomenon, and at one time, Cincinnati was a leader. The beginning of systematic planning in Cincinnati reaches back to 1907 when the city commissioned George Kessler to develop a Parks and Parkways plan, the source of everything from Burnet Woods to Central, Columbia, and Victory Parkways. In 1925, the city published its first comprehensive urban plan, which became the basis for all our concepts of zoning, which prevents a slaughterhouse from being built in the field next to your subdivision house. The granddaddy of all planning efforts is the 1948 Metropolitan Master Plan. The plan took a regional look and a regional approach and tried to deal with a host of issues. The most visible outcome of the 48 Master Plan was the expressway system, but as this documentary from the early 1950s made clear, the plan also grappled with the issues of urban blight and slum clearance and the problems of suburban growth.
In and around the city of Cincinnati are 32 independent communities. Day in, day out, year in, year out, these communities must duplicate many expensive services. For taxpayers, this represents a tremendous waste.
For a variety of reasons, master planning fell out of favor after about 1965. In its place emerged fragmented planning efforts that focused on transportation planning in one portion of the region or planning for an individual neighborhood, a village, or a town. But now, the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission, in cooperation with the collaboration of local governments and private groups, has launched the Community Compass program to develop a comprehensive master plan and strategies for Hamilton County. The first stage of that process has been conducted through a survey of community residents. Responses were collected and analyzed based on 5 different subsections of the county, as you can see on this map. To discuss the Community Compass master planning process, I am joined by Steve Johns, the project manager. Mr. Johns is a planner with the Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission. Adam Goetzman is the Economic Development Director for Green Township, which falls into the near western section of the county for planning purposes. Welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you, Dan.
As we heard in that little clip, from that early 1950s film, one of the concerns then was this fragmentation of the county, 32
That's right.
units, they say. Has that changed
No.
in 50 years? Have we done anything to solve that?
We're up to 49 jurisdictions now, so I guess the problem could be said to be worse. And Michael Gallus, when he came in with his study for the Metropolitan Growth Alliance, he pointed that as to one of our strengths in a way. There's so much diversity here in this county. You can live almost in the country out in Crosby Township, or you can live in the heart of the core in downtown. Big differences in our county, which are a strength, but also a weakness, as the video pointed out.
Adam, you represent Green Township in this effort,
right.
Or you work for Green Township, and you're involved in it for that reason. Who's involved in, Steve mentioned 49 entities here. Who's in the process? Is there anybody not in the process?
Well, currently, of the 49 jurisdictions, we have a little under half of the individual jurisdictions are represented. We cover, I think...
Because some chose not to be?
Well, it's an ongoing process. The initiative began last fall, and we're still in the process of trying to reach out to all the communities and offer them the opportunity to join into the planning partnership. We're covering about, I think, a little over 75% of the total population of Hamilton County and about 80% of the geographic area, if you look at the communities that have already joined. A lot of the smaller municipal governments have yet to join, and we have a couple townships that haven't, but leadership roles of communities like Greene, Anderson, Indian Hill, City of Cincinnati are all involved. So we've got a large geographic area
Greene
covered.
and Anderson are 2 of the largest.
Very large.
How about Coleraine, which is the largest?
Coleraine is one of our newest members, and that really kind of put us over the statistical edge in terms of the amount of population in the area covered. And I think that's something to really for us to have the partnership grow on, is that large base that we're currently working with.
You know, I was just giving that quick, being a historian, I always have some sort of historical setup, but giving that quick sketch of the tradition of planning in this community. Has the way that you go about planning today changed in any sort of significant way than the way planning occurred, you know, a generation ago, let's say?
Yeah, I really do. I think that more and more the public is so much more a part of the process. It used to be you get the planners in the room, they'd kind of come up with their ideas and then try to sell it to the public.
Which I suspect is where that film came from.
Perhaps.
Yeah, trying to sell the concepts.
Plus, Adam and I were talking about the forces that are at work are a lot different. Even the 48 plan was a little more inward, thinking about Cincinnati and how it worked with some of the jurisdictions around. Now we have to think about external forces. What are the national trends? How's the internet going to affect us? How is aging population going to affect us? Those kind of things, as well as the regional things. We've got a huge airport that's generating a lot of economic development down in Kentucky right now, and how does that affect Hamilton County?
Yeah, and this is a plan for Hamilton County, though. How do you factor in those sorts of, let's not worry about the international internet at the moment, the global internet at the moment, but what about the regional concern? Is this really a good approach? And I pose this question in light of the fact that certain other areas have been much more aggressive about this. Indianapolis, merger of county city. Lexington, merger of county city. Most recently, Louisville, last November, merger of county city. Columbus almost doing that. Is this really a sufficient address to that sort of regional concern and real coordinated planning?
Well, I think what we're really talking about is creating a new environment for planning within Hamilton County. And currently, the various jurisdictions don't necessarily communicate well. And I think what we're proposing is a kind of a new paradigm, which is now enables various communities to come together in a forum where they can discuss like-minded issues, or we can learn from each other. And it plays on the diversity, as Steve mentioned, is that there are trends that are at work here in the community that West Siders may not know, but that East Side have already gone through. We need to learn from the things that have happened in other communities. And you know, we haven't had that forum, and I think that's the planning partnership represents that. The community compass becomes kind of a framework to build upon that kind of interrelationship that we hope to form.
And you've started with doing a survey, and this map is up right now. And I find one of the most interesting things as I look at your survey results at this point is that they're most understandable only if you take a look at where they're coming from and what parts of the county are saying what. Let's take a couple of different issues, for example. On the question of new building, new construction, for example, what did people say they wanted? And we'll get a graphic up here in a minute on that, and who wanted what kind of building and development.
I think that was pretty interesting. We talk about it that people already vote with their feet. If you like a town center type development, you live in the urban core where there are a lot of neighborhoods and places where you can walk to get some milk or something like that.
So Hyde Park, Pleasant Ridge.
Exactly.
Right.
And then if you live way out in the far west, you know, Crosby, Whitewater, Harrison, you know, you like more of a rural environment. You like a little room for your building. So that wasn't too surprising that people who live in a certain environment like that environment, but they do want to protect it. I think that's an interesting thing we saw.
Well, I think they want development that is sympathetic to the character of their existing community. I think that's important for the political leaders and for the planners to understand, that really people are in these vast differing geographic areas because of their interest in their community.
But does that, at some point though, is planning just going to always accept what people want at any one moment in time? Isn't planning about where things are headed in the future and maybe ought to happen in the future? So don't some of us need to adjust what we want?
Well, interestingly enough, I don't know if one of the graphics will have it, but the survey was trying to kind of get a feel for what people think in Hamilton County. We're going to have census data because of the 2000 census, so we're going to have some hard numbers. We were trying to get some soft, you know, background on what people believe in the county. And interestingly enough, we found a few surprises, and one of them was an interest in, say, protecting the environment across the board was a priority of all Hamilton County residents. Another, very surprising, was the notion that infrastructure was important to folks.
So what does that mean practically?
Well, road preservation or road building to a certain degree, but also maintaining sewers, expanding sewers, water services into outlying areas. So we're actually seeing what we kind of say a more sophisticated group of residents.
Let's take a look at how that impacts western Hamilton County, because historically that part has not been sewered.
Right.
And has not had the same water, is not hooked in to the water system in the same way. Are people saying they want those services now?
To a limited extent. I think the Near West,
the Near West,
right?
Adams group right there, they see those things as being important. There's a lot of septic tanks out there that in some cases are failing, and that sewer is an answer to some of those problems. But I think it's the efficiency of providing those services is that what we're looking at. Why put a water line out and then have to dig up the road again to put in the sewer line? If we can get those infrastructure services lined up in the right order and serving those areas that are naturally going to grow, areas by interstate interchanges, I mean, those are logical places for growth, that we get a lot more bang for our buck, and we're not going back and having to redo things that we screwed up on.
Yeah, one of the areas that you explored was the whole question of residential growth. We have a graphic on that as well. And there again, what you got is, here you can see that people are saying what they desire in terms of residential growth. The far west really isn't interested very. Is that what I'm reading that right?
Oh, yeah.
The far west doesn't want any real residential growth.
I think that's a great graph that you bring up. I like pointing to the east as well.
Yeah.
Is that's somewhat surprising, but then you think about it. That's where all the growth pressure is right now. Geez, a lot of people want to live in an Indian Hill or a Madeira, and we're seeing development that might not make sense right now. Lots are being divided in half, and a house is being
so
put in the
people are
back.
saying enough is enough.
That's what it sounds like out there, but maybe it's the way growth is occurring that they're really upset with. There's no plan, again, for how that's getting laid out, and it might seem haphazard to them, and it might come with a lot of those externalities that people don't like, traffic, crowded schools, things like that.
Well, I think it's also the process. One of the things the survey really underscored was that people think in Hamilton County that they would like our communities to discuss planning and development efforts cooperatively. Okay, they want us to talk. People in Green Township want to know what's happening in Miami and Coleraine. A. And B was that they want to have a say in what happens. And I think that's partly the purpose of the community compass, was to afford, provide a forum for folks to get involved and communities get involved.
One of the issues on lots of levels, the political level, the planning level, is why are people leaving Hamilton County? And you ask a series of questions there. One of the obvious questions, but again, I found it interesting, we have a graphic on this from your report, is the search for better schools. And that seemed to be the biggest point. Is that fair analysis?
Well, I mean, we've talked about it being kind of a disconnect, and it's the perception that one of the way the survey was formed was to why do you think other people are leaving Hamilton County, and then why would you consider leaving Hamilton County, or why have you moved within Hamilton County in the last 5 years? The perception, overwhelming, was that folks leave Hamilton County for better schools. When asked why would you leave or why have you moved within Hamilton County, it was really housing opportunities. So I think there's a perception that schools are driving people out of Hamilton County, but that's not why I'm making my decision to stay in Hamilton County, and we need to address that.
There are some interesting findings on that too. We've been looking at schools and how they perform, and if you look at the 4 Ohio counties in the region, that Hamilton County has 5 of the 6 top schools districts in that 4-county area. So again, it's that perception that maybe we need to get the word out that in fact Hamilton County has some of the best schools in the region.
Actually, one of the things that I found interesting about your data was that the people who said that they thought people were leaving for better schools came from that north central area, which is where some of those best schools are. Sycamore. Yeah, I was surprised at that. Maybe it's really about the value of education to people. I don't know. But there were some other issues raised, though, too. And that's also, there you can see it right there, North Central on better schools, 28%. It's way out in front, whereas Central, which is the city and the city schools, the real core, is only 17%. So again, I find that it's intriguing. I don't know why.
Definitely a place for further study, and that's why this is just the base of our public participation.
The other issue that I found interesting there was people saying why they thought people were moving was changing demographics.
Right.
What's that mean?
Well, we try to couch that in very broad terms at this point. Again, with this being just the initial public outreach, we wanted to try to cover everything, be it age, race, ethnic changes, even number of people in a family. Those kind of things can shift over time, and again, the 2000 census might be able to shed a little more light on that.
But let's be honest, race is probably a major issue here, as the core of all urban areas tends to become more African American, more minority, and the suburbs become more white, although...
Well, but I think also the suburbs are changing, and I'm by no means an expert on all of Hamilton County and the trends, but even within our community alone, Green Township, we're seeing a lot of forces that are occurring in traditional kind of our central core of Green Township, per se. Though the demographics there are shifting, we're seeing smaller families, less kind of nuclear families occurring. And I think there's a real emphasis for folks to look at their overall community, and they're seeing changes, and that can be scary for
I've got less than 30 seconds here. Where do you go from here? This is just the beginning. Where do you go from here?
We're the 6 more months of public participation. We've got a website out there, www.communitycompass.org. So if you want to give your piece of knowledge, bring it to us. And we'll be out in your community soon.
And look to check with your political leaders, make sure they're participating in the planning partnership, and if they're not, urge them to do so.
And watch Newsmakers. We're going to have you back as you pursue this process. I'm very interested in this process. Thank you for being here. Stay tuned. After the break, I'll be joined by the Director of Economic Development for Hamilton County. Welcome back. Underpinning any effort at planning is the strength of the regional economy. At a time when many people are trying to decipher the direction of the economy, I am joined by David Main, the Executive Director of the Hamilton County Development Company. David, welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you, Dan.
First off, Hamilton County Development Company. What is that?
Hamilton County Development Company is a private, not-for-profit economic development corporation that offers 3 distinct programs. We make small business loans through the SBA's 504 loan program, which is primarily for fixed asset real estate and equipment. We offer the Ohio Regional 166 program, also equipment. We have a microloan program for very small loans up to a maximum of $15,000. In addition, we operate the Hamilton County Office of Economic Development. And last but not least, we've developed and operate the Hamilton County Business Center, which is a business incubator.
Now, you're a private not-for-profit, but what's your relationship with Hamilton County government? Because there is a close relationship here.
The relationship with Hamilton County government, we have a contract with the Board of Hamilton County Commissioners to operate the Office of Economic Development, which primarily focuses in suburban Hamilton County outside the city of Cincinnati. We administer the Enterprise Zone and Community Reinvestment Act or area programs. We also work very intensively on business retention and expansion within the county.
Now, from your perspective, over the last, say, 5 years or so, and given that as a backdrop, where we are right now, what's your evaluation of the health of the local economy?
I think the local economy is been very strong. We've been blessed with having somewhat of a diverse economy. We're spread out. We're not concentrated in any one particular industry. And I think the other thing that's important is while we're not necessarily first, as someone says, you're better off to be the best than the first, and we've been able to look at other things, other changes that have occurred in the economy and make adjustments and come through that. One case in point is with the internet industry. We have not gone through all the downsizings that's happened in Silicon Valley, and hopefully we can avoid some of that because we've learned from their mistakes.
Now, the kinds of companies that you deal with, I mean, most people think of the local economy, they think of the big names, Procter & Gamble, Broadwing, Millicron, whatever. But the companies you deal with tend to be the smaller companies. Is that right?
For the most part. We do deal with the Procter & Gambles and the Ford Motor Companies. But we also deal with the small and medium-sized companies. In fact, the loan programs, that's where their focus is. And those tend to be quite healthy. They tend to be doing well as far as profitability. They're creating jobs. In fact, probably right now the biggest concern is the lack of qualified workers and the ability to retain and attract employees.
The headlines are always with those big companies. But when it comes to job creation, Is it true, I mean, you always sort of hear, but we don't talk about it, I don't think, that much, that it's these smaller companies, maybe companies under 50 people or something, that are really creating the new jobs? That's where they're coming from?
That is the case. The large companies, for the most part, have either been holding steady or downsizing, while these small and medium-sized companies are the ones that are creating the jobs. I'll give you an example. General Electric has dropped out in Evendale, probably over the last 10 years, from 22,000 down to about 10,000. And yet we've had tremendous growth as far as the local economy, and it's been from these small and medium-sized firms, many of them that supply GE right now.
Now, there are setbacks. And in the last few days of last week, there was this announcement about Gap deciding not to move forward with a development that they were going to do in the county. How do you assess that? How important is it? How much of a setback is that sort of thing?
Well, a project like the Gap does not come along every day or even every year, and it's unfortunate. But from our assessment of it, the site out in Harrison Township is probably one of the best sites, not only in Hamilton County, southwest Ohio, but in probably the state of Ohio. In fact, it's the closest site, industrial site, to the Greater Cincinnati Airport in Ohio. We've already had calls and interest from developers and companies about, since the Gap is not going, they're interested in the site. So we feel that it will develop, perhaps not as quickly had Gap been there, but we think it will be. It's a very attractive site, and it will develop fairly rapidly.
Now, if Gap had gone ahead and developed, how many jobs was that projected to bring?
The initial phase was 850 jobs, about 550 from the distribution center and another 300 for their administration and IT headquarters.
Now, if you have a piece of property that has got the advantages you just described, being close to the airport, et cetera, will you now, as you look at new options, also try to make sure you save that for something that's going to generate that many or more jobs?
I think we would, but we're also looking perhaps to make it more of a multi-tenant or a multi-user facility. It's a situation where from an economic development standpoint, you'd probably rather have 10 companies, each employing 85, rather than one company employing 850. You spread your wealth around, so to speak, and you also have perhaps 10 CEOs rather than just one. Mm-hmm. So we would like to see perhaps it be developed with multi-tenant or multi-users.
You know, one of the things that you and I got a chance to work with you a little bit 15 years ago on was the Hamilton County Incubator, and something that Small Business Incubator, which I've always felt really good about. What's the state of that now, and how's it doing?
The incubator is doing extremely well. We bought the building on the north back, like we said, 15 years ago, and then we acquired about 4 years ago the building to the south.
And this is in Norwood, by the way, just to let people know. This is in Norwood, and it's the old paint factory, right?
Old Foy Johnson Company. It's
okay.
At 1776 Menor Avenue. We are currently at 80% occupancy. We have 41 tenants. We're down because in the last 45 days we've graduated 7 companies from the incubator. Over the lifespan, we've graduated well over 100 companies, 70% of which are still in business. Now you think, does that mean 30% failed? Not necessarily. With the strong economy, we've had a number of entrepreneurs who have opted to go the employment route as opposed to continuing their entrepreneurial ventures.
And what does the incubator do for somebody? Let's say I've got a business idea. Is it just a place to be, or what are the services that go into that incubator?
An incubator is really more than just this space. In fact, we don't call it cheap space. We call it affordable, flexible space. But beyond that, we offer business support services. We can type letters. We can provide word processing. We have a fax machine, a copier. We have a conference room that's available. In addition, an incubator is an environment that's conducive to risk-taking and entrepreneurial thinking. One of the loneliest things a person can do is start a business. If they've left a successful company, their spouse, significant other thinks they're nuts, their neighbors think they're nuts because most businesses fail. But being in an incubator, they're with other entrepreneurs who are struggled, solved, wrestled with problems. And so it's an environment that's conducive to risk-taking. But also it's more than merely group therapy. It's access to business management and technical assistance. And we do that not only with our current incubator director. We host a small business development center on site, and we also have networks with various professionals that we can bring in from time to time to assist entrepreneurs.
Well, having been an entrepreneur because you sort of encouraged me, I know how important that is, and good luck. And thank you for being here this morning to explain all of your programs. And if people are interested in getting in touch with Hamilton County Development Company, you can call them, and here's the number on the screen, 631-8292, and it's, of course, 513 area code. Thanks, Dave, for being here.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Join us again next week to meet the men and the women shaping our community for the future. Have a good week.